Sure. But,
Yeah.
yes, but that's the thing. As a writer, I know as a writer, you do want to connect
Yes.
with people. When I put out the Boss Fight web series, I was terrified. The Song of Sparkle Muffin stuff, it's terrifying because yes, it's jokes and it is sort of all right. We're making this game um for a certain demographic, but it's also what I think is funny, what I think is underrepresented
Hmm.
in games, and the idea of heroism and different types of heroism is really important to me just because I've never felt represented in media. I don't know what this concept is. And I understand that because, it's much easier with girls because it's the whole external beauty thing.
Hmm.
But what makes me concerned is these guys who worship superhero fiction and use it as this escapist bomb. I thought they were in it for the same reasons I was, which
Apparently not.
no, not at all, because I see myself in Daredevil. I see myself in Captain America. Obviously, I'm not represented by these characters, but in terms of the way they view the world, I can connect. And the fact that these guys are identifying with asshole outside the sports bar or dude with too much beard oil instead of like Charlie Cox's excellent portrayal. Because I mean, the whole thing about him being blind and therefore not judging her on how she looked, I felt like that all got missed.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that all got missed in the prejudgment of the show. They're just like, this show hates men, and so they didn't see the validation of a good man who isn't just looking for a fetish fuck.
Yeah.
Because that was the other thing I think people missed because they prejudged it, that Jen was attracting what her dating profile was designed to attract.
Fetishist.
Fetishes, because she wasn't, I mean, it was just a mistake to say, oh, she got no likes, like no matches on
Hmm.
her dating profile. Women can put profile pictures of a tree on dating profiles and get matches. So it would have been better if it was, very desperate guys. They still
Yeah.
would have felt attacked by that. But, the fact that she got absolutely no matches. No, I don't know where they got that from. Maybe someone on the writing staff had that happen, but my understanding is that is not the problem on dating sites. The problem is too many creeps.
I think they were probably trying to go for contrast.
I think they were trying to go, wow, she's such a massive loser. She's the only woman on the planet that gets no matches.
Mm-mm.
And
She didn't even get an unsolicited dick pic.
yeah, and that's what I think they were going for. I think they were going for that Rick and Morty hyperbolic humor.
Hmm.
But of course, all this got missed in the prejudgment based on a promo. And
Yeah.
again, based on some out of context interview fodder with the showrunner, with Jen Gao and Tatiana Maslany.
Hmm.
And part of that is the fact that earned media is so desired. I love what Disney did with Inside Out. Did you see what they did with Sadness?
No.
Oh, Sadness was like shying away on the red carpet and then like just right against the backdrop, like, oh my God, having a complete introvert social anxiety, like, freeze up. And then inside the theater, she knocked over a bucket of popcorn.
Oh God.
And it was just, and of course it went viral, and some people started dunking on Sadness, and then other people defended Sadness, and it became this big earned media viral thing.
Yeah. Was it on purpose or was it
Oh, it was completely on purpose.
okay?
This was somebody in a mascot suit. Disney does not fuck with theming.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so like, was the actor just not used to the mascot suit, or was it on purpose?
No, it was totally
But
in
sounds like on
character.
purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally in character with Sadness. And because you know as well as I know, if it wasn't on purpose, they would have pulled her the minute that mascot got off the red carpet.
true.
You do not go off script with Disney. It's amazing the way they are so nice, but they do herd your behavior.
I mean, Disneyland has its own police force essentially.
Yeah, but
So
it's shaping. I mean, they did flat out tell me when I was doing Quora stuff that I was not to quote the first movie. I was doing it and they told me to stop. They were very, very nice about it, but I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, they don't know it. Ugh.
yeah.
I'm like, shit. And I'm like, shit. And they're like, I know. And they're so nice that they get away, they break down your reactance barriers. They're like, I know it's bad. And they're so nice about it. They're like, okay. You feel like you were praised, even though they gave you a correction. That's just Disney's that good. And that's why, I mean, the experiences with Disney and knowing how protective they are of things, I think gives me an insight into they might be making mistakes with
Hmm.
Star Wars. They might be making mistakes with Marvel, but the only political agenda in that place, if anything, is capitalism.
Yeah. Give me money.
Yeah, they might be bad at it, but the thing people have to keep in mind about Disney is it's not just about that movie or that show. It's about the tie-in video game, the theme park ride, the merchandise tie-ins, the Vera Wang t-shirts, the handbags. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Oh yeah.
all those licenses. And if there's a messaging issue, if there's something going awry, I mean, frankly, I just think when you see how they were running the Marvel stuff,
Hmm.
it was almost like they were giving too much deference to the way because they were Marvel methoding those TV shows. They had no showrunner.
Oh God.
Yeah, that maybe I should describe what the Marvel method is for people who don't know.
Yeah.
In Marvel comics, the writer writes a script and then the artist goes, "Yeah, great. I'm going to draw what I want to draw based on this script." And then they give it back to the writer who then fills in the word balloons based on what the writer drew. DC doesn't do this.
Yeah. Oh, so this was something that started because like Stanley didn't even really write scripts per se.
No.
It was he had a general idea of what he wanted. He would tell Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Jack Kirby would then draw it, and then Stan went in and figured out the actual dialogue.
But I mean, Stanley was such a natural collaborator. I remember when we interviewed him, it was if Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, why doesn't he shoot webs at his ass? Which he'd probably heard a million times. I don't know. But, he said, we considered that, but we thought it would be unseemly. And he just ran with it and he remembered the stupid thing from 5 minutes ago in it. And he was just such a great improver. And he was 91
Yeah.
when he was doing this. Like Stan Lee is the reason I'm like, shut up about Biden's age.
I I always hoped I would get to meet Stanley. So
Hey,
I'm
it's so he's some people thought he was a bullshit artist, but
I
that I think didn't understand him.
he was a very good hype man.
He was a good hype man, but he was also really good at you see this in Peter Parker recovering from setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Walt Disney had the same thing. There was almost this like delusional quality that if you were around them, you believed, no matter how bonkers the idea was.
And I think something some people forget is, I've talked about how much I love Mary Jane and
Yeah.
her whole story of she wears the mask of the party girl
Yeah.
to cover up her own trauma. And I think Stan actually did the same thing
Oh, yeah.
because I didn't read any of the biographies or autobiographies he wrote except for the comic book one, the
Yeah.
marvelous, fantastic, stupendous, whatever it's called.
Well,
And
I
I
mean,
could see,
in his later years, he was very likely a victim of elder abuse.
oh
So
yeah,
there's that, right?
yeah. But just the way he would talk about things that were difficult, but then kind of gloss over it, like especially the fact that they couldn't have any more children after the
Right.
one daughter.
Right.
The way he talked about that, I'm like, oh, that's a Mary Jane thing.
Yep.
That's the, oh yeah, there was this difficulty, but let's focus on the good things.
Yep. And I
And
mean, Marvel Marvel was a disaster, okay, before Disney bought it. I mean, you talk to some, well, I won't share any stories just
mhm,
in case, but their bookkeeping was terrible. Authors, so artists had to chase them for residuals because they didn't track the distribution in places like Latin America and other parts of the world.
oh
Like
god.
it was on fire. It didn't really function as a professional company.
Mhm.
But Disney is so respectful to method that they're like, let's Marvel method TV. And they finally realized Marvel methoding TV doesn't work. Passing off the script to the director that just does what they want with it doesn't really work.
And like here, I'm gonna tie this into something a bit offbeat. So we had in the last decade or so, more than that, we had the Les Miserables movie and the Cats movie,
Yes.
the musical movies, which were directed by Tom Hooper. And I think he was trying to do something like that, where the whole thing was, oh, we will do live singing on sets so that the actors can do whatever they want with their performance and maybe have a click track or a piano player in their earpiece. And then the orchestra will go in later and record based around that singing.
Which is fucking a terrible idea.
It's a terrible
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And it doesn't and there was like, oh, but we get all the thrill of a live performance. And it's like, you still could have done rehearsals and had the orchestra and the singers collaborate and decide ahead of time how they want to do things and then perform live the way stage shows do,
Right.
which is like, it's why Tom Hooper is a terrible idea for directing musicals, and I don't understand how he got that position because it wasn't even until doing Cats, I think, that he realized, oh, the conductor is like the director, and he leads the instruments the way I lead the
Mhm.
people, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah, and not having that build, like
and
not having that orchestra behind you, you don't get the builds in the big moments. You're just not
yeah.
feeling it the same way.
That's also part of what happened with Cats is like there are exactly two good performances in Cats that actually get what the music is supposed to be doing. It's Jason Derulo and the guy who plays Skimbleshanks the railway cat.
Mhm.
And that's because they're dancers.
Right.
And so they were like, yeah, no, I'll take the click track because that's what I do anyway, because I have to be on beat.
Right.
And just like, oh god. And that's part of why I'm nervous about the fact that Wicked is doing the same thing, and especially because like the actresses were like, no, we want to sing live, and I'm like, are you guys taking the precautions that needs, because like, or are you doing the Tom Hooper method?
I don't think so. It's Disney.
Is it?
Yeah.
I Let me check that. Because I think no, it's Universal.
Oh, it's Universal. Oh, okay. It might be a design. Why did I think it was Disney?
I don't know.
Weird. It could be a hot mess, but
Yeah.
I don't
So
know. Universal owns theme parks too.
yeah. Uh
I
John
mean,
Chu did In the Heights. So, but I also
mm,
Lin-Manuel Miranda, I think, was actually involved in that one, and he at least has theater understanding.
well, Ariana Grande's a fantastic singer. As much as questionable human, incredible voice. And
Yes.
Cynthia Erivo is a Broadway performer.
Yeah. So hopefully there will be that. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, why do we keep letting non-musical people make musical movies? And like I know part of how John M. Chu got into doing musicals was because he did Crazy Rich Asians,
Yes.
which amazing movie. I love that movie. It's a great spectacle. And I guess they were like, oh, that'll translate into musical spectacle.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. All these conspiracy theories about how Marvel is part of some Disney conspiracy. That's just not how the whole thing worked.
No.
And we know what was wrong with it. It was a lack of quality control
Mm-hmm.
because they had no showrunners. It's the opposite of a top-down conspiracy.
Yeah.
But they won't let it go. And then Star Wars has just gotten absurd.
It's also just the industry standard of getting people as cheap as they can.
Yeah.
So
That that's part of it.
you're not going to get the best if you do that.
And I
You're,
mean, a a company that had the Gina Carano debacle
mhm.
is not a well-organized machine,
Oh God.
because that was just that reeked of there was an internal revolt. The people there, I mean, based on my Disney experiences, they were not prepared for a near riot
No.
behind the scenes, and they bungled it. And unfortunately, Gina Carano made some choices where there's no way back now, which
Yeah.
is really unfortunate, because if I do think in an alternate timeline, if she just waited a bit, things would have calmed down and they could have given it another chance. I could be totally wrong, but the thing with that one was not what happened in public. It was, and I'm getting this based on her own interview with Ben Shapiro, where
Mm-hmm.
she came across as extremely sympathetic. Uh,
Yeah.
but she panicked and wouldn't go through the process of mending fences
Yeah.
because she was too afraid. She thought it was going to be 40 people in a room all yelling at her. And that isn't how Disney does correction. But you know, that was her legitimate fear. And so she wouldn't give it a try. And if that was, I've been in a position where I've had to offer people, look, this is what I can offer you
Mm-hmm.
in terms of an off ramp here. We all want to keep working together. We just have to patch some holes in things. So this is what we can do. And people don't give it a chance. They don't trust.
Yeah.
And that's nobody's fault. It's unfortunate. I do think there was a lot of stereotyping surrounding how Gina Carano looked that went into the way she was treated publicly. There were certain expectations of her by the fan base that were not fair. Um,
How
but
do you mean?
well,
I'm curious what you mean by that.
the fact that Anna from the Young Turks is allowed to keep her progressive credentials, even though she's, team adult human female.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, she's shots fired against Hassan right now. There's shit going on there. But I think people made assumptions that Gina Carano was going to be cool with gender fluidity because she's
Uh,
not traditionally, she's muscular. She's an
yeah,
MMA fighter. People don't realize that MMA fighters tend to be very conservative.
yeah.
Like, and I don't think she was hateful. I think she didn't know.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest things with the way purity culture works is not purity culture, sorry. Um
Oh, I think it is purity culture.
well yeah, I tend to think of purity culture as the anti-sex stuff, but yeah, no, it is the purity testing is there is no room for grace and there
No,
is no room for ignorance.
there's this stuff. I mean, okay, I started with the pro transgender stuff when it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're talking, God, I was dealing with it after my knee surgery, so 10 years ago. And you couldn't expect people to get it on the first try. And you had the conversations again and again of what? What do you mean assigned female at birth? Like, what do you mean they were always a man? Huh? And you couldn't just bash your way in. The problem is you still can't.
No, because no one handles that well, and that's what so much of this culture war is built
Yeah.
on is the fact that we're not trying to educate people. It's so many people are just coming in and like hatcheting. Like, okay, we're putting this here now. We're doing this. And it's like this isn't how you win friends and influence people.
Well,
It,
it's not when you put someone in a reactive state, when you put someone on the defensive, they're less likely to listen to you. Instead
yes.
of going, I'm going to introduce a character that had a culture that has atypical gender,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and it's just going to be that in the culture. It's not going to be bad or good. It's just gonna be this is the way this race functions. Like the Asari in Mass Effect. They all look like women. They don't have that concept, but to a human, they all look like women.
As
And
usual, I try to make a point, and Liana makes it way more intellectually.
but like you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that was just to be open to the idea. You start the ball rolling in fiction.
Mm-hmm.
You can't force someone to agree with you the way, oh God, I'm trying to think of an example of, I mean, there's the whole phenomenon of people who love Doctor Who hate Doctor Who fans.
Eh, can't say I blame him.
Well, because it's always been a series with very fluid continuity, and it's deliberately left vague because it's soft sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to hard sci-fi.
Yeah.
And you've got this group who continuity polices, and it was never intended to be that.
No.
And part of Doctor Who is it always leaves it up to you to finish the unspoken thing. And that's why I like it. Because I can go, oh, cool. So they went on and they had this whole life. And I don't like it whenever they reference Rose being trapped on another planet. Because I'm like, no, Rose got her family reunited and she got the guy who stood by her while she had her stupid rock star crush.
I mean, actually, I mean, she's with the doctor now, and Mickey ended up coming back to the regular universe.
But they went back at the end of at the end of Rose's run. She goes back to that other universe to be with because her mom goes there. And, oh yeah, Jackie's back. See, that's something. See, they've done Doctor Who as every time they go back, they create a new timeline.
Yeah.
So the answer to everything is yes. That's why. everybody freaking out about Indian Isaac Newton completely missed the point. The whole idea is it was anachronistic. I mean, they went back to pre-revolutionary France and introduced the word okay. And it was this whole joke of, was that the Bridgerton episode as well? It might have been. But they dealt with the fact that these chavies from modern day are going back and going, okay, sure. And they're going, okay, that phrase didn't exist back then,
Mhm.
obviously. And
Yeah.
so that obviously is going to cause a temporal distortion, a butterfly effect.
Yeah.
And so it's just, they rightly went, oh, yeah, you're just creating an infinite number of timelines, an infinite number of possibilities. And it's like, okay, that's really cool. Because then everybody can have their head canon somewhere, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's a universe out there where the Doctor isn't a complete dick to River. Yay.
God.
Right? And so the people who try to police it and go, they ruined it, and that's just putting your own shit on the thing. It
It
just is. We all do it, but it
yeah.
just is.
It
It,
and
it's
it's
funny
not
because, sorry, go ahead.
it's not worth it either. Because like
No,
going back to how I said, I dipped out of Star Wars.
yeah,
Like obviously I'm still aware of stuff that goes on, but it's like for my own mental health, I decided it wasn't something I should be involved in. And
yeah,
then I see these people who are still screaming about it all these years later. And I'm like, I made the choice, like I said, for my mental health. I think they should too. But
and the silly thing is that Star Wars isn't one thing anymore
no.
because they do the stuff, for people who like Andor. There's Andor. For people who like more Skywalker saga, dear God, there's that. Ahsoka was a Rebels reunion, a Clone Wars and Rebels reunion. All right, Mandalorian is increasingly becoming a Clone Wars continuation.
and
Um,
and like I'm still not thrilled with that.
oh, I'm
I
not either.
but it's like, okay, again, it's I'm not emotionally invested anymore. I took my step back,
Mhm.
and if it bothers you, you can too.
But for me, I'm watching The Acolyte, and I don't
Mhm.
expect a groundbreaking plot.
No.
Can't even say it, right? I'm like, okay, there's cool new robot designs, and they actually look a little less advanced than the ones we have in the New Republic, because it's a High Republic,
That's something.
and they're more like gadgets that turn into robots as opposed to robots that resemble humans.
Interesting.
Which I'm like, okay, that actually makes sense. I can see how it progressed in that way. And then there are different types of aliens and different force sensitive factions. And I don't expect it to be, I don't know, whatever movie you consider smart. I don't even know what that is anymore.
But I mean, that's also way more realistic than, oh, you have this entire galaxy and there's only two and a half factions.
Well, the High Republic was the era where the Jedi consolidated power and became kind of what the Templars were, the universe police, which is why they got too powerful, and then it led to Order 66.
Yeah.
Uh, they're also making it kind of a dark side infiltration story,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I don't know why people are prejudging it so much. There have been leaks. We don't know if they're accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And it,
I'm so tired of leaks.
I, I, I was tired of leaks when I was still a games journalist because they ruined reporting. It's become this very, very frightened, clamped down battle between the press and the developers instead of what I think it should be. And yes, I'm soapboxing a little bit here. This is a philosophical perspective. I think the best kind of entertainment reporting, the best kind of games journalism, especially in games, is a symbiotic relationship between the press and the developers. It's porous enough that the developers feel like they're going to get a fair shake, and so the press can keep them honest. But that means not reporting leaks.